Join the team.
Hey team, it's McGuire Review, and today we're going to take a look at Wizkids' brand new Grease Lightning. Wow, what a name. Grease Lightning. Like, if you're going to name a board game something, name it Grease Lightning. Now, a race between a race between a rock and a hard place. I'm not sure I understand the tagline, because there are no rocks and there are no hard places, but Grease Lightning? Nailed it. Okay, this is a race game. This is one of your classic race games, and I would say this is very much a race game. And I say that because a lot of these race games, you are racing around a track and you're collecting points, and sometimes it isn't always where someone is located on that racetrack. It's how many points you've acquired that gives you the win. This game is very different. It does not have any points. It's not point based. It is strictly a race around this track with your ship, and whoever by the second sort of round is in the lead is the winner. So there is no points. There's no extra way to like throw in a win somehow. You can get some extra movement depending on what you're kind of doing there on your last turn after someone hits that second round. Everybody, if there were more people within that round that needed, if somebody reached the second lap, and there's other people that haven't had a turn in that round yet, that you will get a final turn, but there's no extra like bonus points to pull out at the end to be able to win. It literally is who is in the first position around there is the winner. And I really like that about this game. And I think it sort of goes back to the core of these racing games and how they work. So well done from that perspective on the design. Now, I do have it out of the box because I wanted to show how well they actually packaged this, too. Wizkids is getting really, really good with this, and I'll kind of show. Things have kind of moved a little bit there, but in this box, it has a very nice insert that you'll see here, how everything is kind of packaged in there. It all fits in just perfect. Everything has its spot, and we will pull it out and put it together here, and then I'll show you how to play the game because the game is very, very simple. So here is your lap counter where everybody would start, and then after you go around once, you'll move over here, and then as you're going around that second time, you'll move here. So it's after that second time around the lap that triggers end game, and whoever is in the first spot after everybody from that round is gone is the winner, and it's that simple. You do have one little piece here that indicates the start. I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. You will have little wooden boats, okay, that represent the 4 different colors in the game. There are a number of those because you'll need one for you that will be on the board, and then you'll take your other one and you'll put it on your lap counter here just to kind of show where you are going around that lap. Then you will have a little disc that will match your color as well, and that's really just used for once you move on the board, so you can track how far you've moved. So you always have that little disc under your boat, and then as you move around the board, let's say you have movement of 10, that just helps you like, okay, where was I? You can say, oh, I was here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just helps you understand where you are, and then once you are done with your turn, then you'll move that little chip back under your boat. It's the only purpose for this, just helps you kind of understand how far you've moved. And trust me, you will forget. There's these little dots you'll see once you move around the track. We get it out here. You'll forget because you'll think about how you'll want to move, and you might change your mind because there's multiple paths you can take. Every player will get one of these really nice, I call them little cheat boards, little cheat sheets, and they can be used to put your fish as well as your dice when you roll. There's also a lot of good information on them on what the fish can be used for. When you play the game, it also shows you a couple of the whirlpools and how those work, and then it's got a little spot here. You can always have up to 2 of these we'll just call them power cards. They're cards that give you a little bit of an extra ability that you can cash in and use when it's your turn, and then it will tell you exactly how to play the game right here, and it's that simple. Okay, so we'll just hit that right now. Start of round, everyone rolls dice. So everybody rolls their dice. We'll get to those here in a second. Then you do the player turn. Step 1, you place wedges if you have them. Step 2, you move your ship based on the results of your dice rolls. And then step 3, you reveal favor cards. And that would be any cards that you would acquire over the course of that turn. At the very end, you would reveal them and everybody could see them, and then you could slot them in. If you ever have more than that 2, then you would discard 1 to keep another. So it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Just the old grease lightning there on the back. So that's how that works. That literally is the whole game. I just explained it. So it's that fast. And that's another one. I think this is a really, really good gateway and family game. They just kind of killed it from that perspective. There are 2 different types of these, and I'll explain that here in a second. This one here, this little token, this is always going to be passed to start with the first player, and whoever for that round, when the round is over, is in last place will get this. And the beauty to this is it allows them to go first in the next round. So that sort of where does it start and kind of go around will change throughout the game, which is a mechanic I've always liked. As well as not only allowing them to go first, it also allows them to double the movement of their navigation die. And we'll get there in a second. So it allows that person that's in last place to sort of catch up a little bit. So this is a great mechanic, and it keeps sort of that. It keeps these race games from going from the perspective of somebody getting ahead because of a lot of lucky die rolls or cards that they end up picking up that give them a boost to speed. It stops someone from getting way ahead. So whoever is in last place is always going to be able to kind of catch up by use of this. And it can make a lot of difference as well if you do roll a 3 on your navigation die, because then it doubles whatever values on your navigation die, which would give you 6. We'll talk about how you get your movement, because you actually add your movement up through a number of these dice. You will have a little baggie of fish. These fish are really just used. You'll acquire them as you hit different spots along the board. And whenever you run into a Hydra, there is something called Hydra Protection. We can talk about that once we get to the dice. But whenever you run into a Hydra, you need to feed the Hydra a fish to keep moving. You can also use fish when you get to the whirlpools. On different paths require different number of fish. So if you have these fish, they're very beneficial to you. You can only have up to 3 of them, but they are beneficial to you when you have them because they kind of get you out of a. Well, I guess that's the tight spot, right? I don't know. Maybe that's the rate. Maybe that's between the rock and the hard place, right? You don't have a fish, you're between a rock and a hard place. Okay, here are the favor cards. So there are 4 that are starter cards that you'll hand out at the beginning of the game. You will hand those out secretively, and then you flip them over. And what that will do is, depending on the number there, you will get to place your ship on the start. There's 4 different spots, and you can place whichever lane you want to kind of start in. And they are a little bit different. So we'll jump to that real quick. If you do look at this start tile here, and every tile looks like this, where they're going to have, little points on them, and they'll have all kinds of different things as you kind of move around. Whatever, if it's just a red dot, you just kind of land on it and move on. Or it might have a fish on it, might have a Hydra, might have a little lightning bolt. The little lightning bolt is, hey, draw a card. So they have different things on them. And when you start the game, you may want to pick one of these lanes, because that very next thing that is on the board, and the board is kind of randomized each time, may be something that you want. I generally try to start on one where my next movement is going to get me a fish, at least one fish, because those fish are relatively important. Okay. Then we have our dice. These are our navigation dice. I do like what Wizkids is doing right now with their components, with their dice. I've seen this in a number of their newer games, where the dice has kind of that foggy, that cloudy look to it, and I just think it makes it look a lot classier. It looks nicer. I don't know why, but visually it just gives the component a better feel. So there's the navigation dice, and then here are your standard dice, which same thing. They didn't make them just that normal clear. They're kind of that cloudy look, which again I think it just makes them look like a higher level component. Okay, and that's it. And you'll see the insert there is well designed. It's got a spot and a little area for literally everything, and everything fits nice and tight right back in that insert, which is something that I want to see literally from every board game company out there. In today's landscape, with the level of competition in the board game industry, you better start stepping up your game like this, where you've got nice, thick, high-quality cardboard boxes, you've got really well-designed inserts, and you put a little bit of extra effort into the component design to make it visually appealing. Just so, you know, Wizkids is doing a great job with that, and you know, many other companies are as well. But it really isn't acceptable anymore just to pump out the cheapest stuff you can with no good insert or some generic insert. It's just not acceptable anymore in today's industry. It's too much competition. Okay, so we've got kind of the standard tiles. I'm gonna get these out of the way, and then we have these, and these make up the bulk of the kind of the main game board. So we'll set this here in the center. This is our centerpiece, and they do have different symbols on them. And there's three of 4 different types of symbols. So like this one is the lightning bolt there, and you got a little lightning bolt on the top of those. And then there's a trident, and there's a number of different symbols. The important thing is, and they're color coded as well to the 4 colors, so they're easy to kind of put together. The important thing is they can go in any order that you want to put them down, but they do have to be together. Okay, so all the lightning bolts have to be together, then all the tridents, then and again, it can be trident, lightning bolt, it can be any order you want, right? It just has to, the sets have to be together. So I'll just randomly pull these out, and they are random every time. I do try to mix these up when I put them back in the board, or when I put them back in the box. That way when I pull them out, they're already in a random order. Okay, and then it makes your whole board. All right, so that's how it goes together. It's that easy. And then you got your little centerpiece, kind of pull it in, and it's nice and snug and fit, and it's all tight together. And then what you do is you just select randomly anywhere you want to put that start, you know, and there may be a reason why you want to put it one spot or other. It is supposed to be kind of random, so I'm just going to put it right there. Okay, and now this has become our start, and we talked about, you know, depending on our initial favor card that each person gets, then that'll be the order that you'll get to select, either 1, 2, 3, or 4 starting lane, wherever you want to start. And then that is your start and finish line. So you'll go all the way around, and then once you hit that again, then you can kind of take your boat that's up here and move it over. You're on kind of your second lap there. And that's what's interesting. Sometimes, you know, some people will be, you might have 3 of the 4 players onto their second lap, and somebody's still back here. And obviously that person would, if they were that far back, they'd be getting this for each turn, giving themselves that extra doubling of the navigation die for a little bit more speed, as well as getting to go first for that round, which is can make a big difference. So I like that mechanic that they added that in there, that just doesn't leave somebody behind in the dust because they get some rolls that aren't great, or they don't pull some favor cards that aren't great. Because there's a number of these favor cards that actually give you speed boosts, like +3 to your speed or something like that. Some way that it can affect your speed. So I find if I ever get into a situation where I've got too many of these favor cards and I pick up one or I acquire one that says, hey, it adds to your speed, I generally will keep the one that adds to the speed unless I'm in a kind of situation where, I don't know, the cards do lots of different things, but I generally hang on to those ones that give me the speed boost, because again, it's whoever is ahead at the end is the winner. There is no other way to come out as the winner. Okay, so let's look at some gameplay here of how this would work, and it's very, very simple. So I'm just gonna show you here. So let's say let's just randomly grab a couple of these. Let's say I have these 2 here, these 2 favorite cards. One of them is called Divine Feast. One of them is called Blown Off Course. So it says, move another player's ship to a dot of your choice on the wedge immediately behind them. If there is a Hydra on that dot, it has no effect. So that's just going to kind of mess somebody up, move them back 1 wedge. That could be a really powerful end game move if someone's just 1 wedge ahead of you and you could move them back and then end up winning. So that could be very powerful end game. This one here says gain 1 fish if you have 3 fish already. Instead, choose another player to gain 1 fish. Okay. Then some of these cards you'll see have little lightning bolts on them. If you ever have a card that's got a little lightning bolt on it, that means it activates as soon as you acquire it. Some cards don't have those. They just have like a little boat icon on them. That basically means you can use that whenever you want on your turn. But the ones that have the lightning bolts have to be executed immediately once you draw them. And again, if you drew them during a turn, you wouldn't reveal them until the end of your turn, then you would reveal them. So you are going to get stuff like this, which sometimes, it's your card you drew, but if you've already got 3 fish, your max, you have to actually give a fish to some other player. And fish are things you want to have. They very, very much make a big difference when you're going through and playing the game. All right, so let's say that I started the game and I chose, I would choose this start because essentially my first spot would get me a fish. All right, so let's say I was starting my turn here. Every player is going to get 1 navigation die and 2 speed dice. I'm going to roll my navigation die first. Okay, and I got a 1. Awesome. Okay, so I'll put that 1 right there, and then I'm going to roll my first speed die. You're not going to roll them both together. You're going to roll 1 first. And I got a 4. Now, a 4 is a decent roll, but if I got like a 1 or a 2, I definitely would roll the second die. So if you look right under here, it says if your roll on the second movement die is less than the first movement die, you lose both. You never lose your navigation die, so I would always have 1 movement at least. But right now I have 1 plus 4, so you add all these dice up for your total movement. I have 1 plus 4, I have 5 movement. I can take a chance and roll this dice, but if I roll something that is less than, it can be equal to, but if it's less than a 4, I lose them both, and I now only have 1 movement. So I don't know. I literally have to roll a 4, 5, or 6, so I have a 50-50 shot. It is the first turn of the game, and it might be good to get ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and take the chance, and I rolled a 2, which means I just lost all my movement. So now my movement is only 1. So I literally on my turn would just move 1. I would gain a fish, so I'd grab a fish. Okay, I'd put that on my. We didn't do like proper startup, but I'd put that on my board there, and because you will start the game with 2 fish, but I'd put that on my board there. So my fish would kind of be maxed out now. So technically my fish would be maxed out at this point. So we'll go ahead and max those out. All right. And that would be the end of my turn because I wouldn't have any wedges. So I wouldn't have placed those. I would have done that before I moved my ship, but I don't have any wedges. And I didn't gain any cards because we just used this kind of as an example. You technically would only have your starter card. So I didn't gain any cards, so I wouldn't reveal any cards. Let's say I was going to my second turn, and this is what things looked like. More than likely there'd be other people that'd be further along the track at this point because of this flub. So I'd roll. We're going in now the next round. Everybody would do it again. I got a 1 again, and I would have been last technically, more than likely. So I would have had this, which means I definitely would have went first for that round. It also means that my navigation die would have been doubled. So I'm already at 2 speed. I'm going to go ahead and roll that first die. I got a 4. You know what? I'm already behind. I'm not going to take the risk again. I'm not going to roll this secondary navigation die because I've now got 6 movement in total because this allowed this to double plus 4. So 2 plus 4 is 6. And now I can choose. Well, I can't choose yet. I have to follow the path I'm on. I hit this. I get another fish, but I'm already maxed, so I get nothing. I'm hitting a whirlpool, and this whirlpool has a 2-3 to go one direction or a 1 to go the other direction. And what that means is if any of these dice have those numbers, you can use them. But if they don't, if only your navigation die has that number, then you do have to use your navigation die's number. So the 1's there, so I'll go this path versus this path. All right. See, now I've already forgotten where I was, so that's why it's important to have this. So that's where I started. So I've moved 1, 2, okay? And I have a total of 6. So there's 3. This boat right here is on 4, but you don't count it. You would skip it and then go 4. But there is a split here. I could go one way or the other. But I think I am going to go this way. So 4, 5, 6. So now I'm actually right here. So now I'm right in the pack of where everybody else is because I was able to catch up. It wasn't that big of a deal. It only added one more movement for this round. It's really powerful when you roll a 3 and then it becomes a 6. You can get a real big sail, real big wind in the sail and move much further down the path. Okay? That is the game. That is exactly how it works. Again, whenever you hit these little Hydra spots, you'll see on the close-up videos what the different things look like on this board. If you hit a Hydra, you got to cash in the fish. If you can't cash in a fish, you're stuck. You have to stop right there, regardless of how much movement you have. Now, there is a little rule in the game called Hydra Protection, where essentially how it works is if you have a nice big roll, but you can only move like a short distance before you have to stop and you have no fish, you do have this thing called Hydra Protection where you can ignore the Hydra and move on. It only really plays out in these situations where you just can't, you're only getting a very, very short movement until you hit that Hydra. Kind of stops that situation of like losing all of your movement within a turn. If you're really, really close, it's like, oh, moved one, Hydra can't do anything, right? Because I didn't have any fish. If you do ever land on one of the little wedge symbols, you basically just gain a wedge. Now, these will be turned over like this, and they'll be shuffled up, and you'll just gain one. And you can see it, everybody can see it, you can set it next to you. Upon the beginning of your next turn, after you roll your dice for movement, the first thing in your player turn is to place wedges. So, you can only have one wedge at a time in a 3 to 4 player game. In a 1 and 2 player game, you can have more than one, but in a 3 to 4 player game, you only have one wedge at a time. You'll take that wedge and you'll put it on the board anywhere you want. So this is kind of the mechanic that can change. It's the way that the board can change. And then you just, now it's a different thing. Like instead of being a +3 movement and a blank dot and a fish, now it's a +3 movement and now that path isn't even there anymore. Now it wraps around this way and you hit a Hydra and now you're right off to this path with a fish. So you may use this strategically to place it right in front of where you are to help you navigate around things or get to a different path, or you may use it to strategically kind of mess somebody else up that might be right next to a +3 and get an extra boost of speed, or maybe on a path where they get a couple fish right in a row, and you don't want that to be the case, so you'll maybe put that right in front of them. That's the way that you use these wedges. You can stack as many of them on each other as you want, so it is kind of cool after you play out the game. The game board does start to kind of change three-dimensionally with these little things stacked up on them. It does move pretty quickly, so you don't get a ton, but it is kind of cool how they do start to stack up and give a little bit of a three-dimensional look and feel to the board. I thought that was kind of cool as well. The only area that you can't stack this on is the start. Obviously, you can't put it over that, but you can put it over any other area, even if it already has one stacked on it. Okay, that is the entire game. That is Grease Lightning. Again, the person that ends, that's the furthest ahead after everybody. After somebody gets to the second round, and everybody gets the last turn. Who's ever in that furthest place ahead is the winner, hands down. That's the way it works. It is a true race title. So, I really liked this. The family liked this. This is a great family night game. It is a great gateway game as well. It is extremely simplistic from a rule set perspective. And one thing I've been saying a lot in a lot of these videos is that companies need to get back. I think this is why, in my opinion, board games 5-10 years ago were just better than the stuff that we have today. For the most part, in my mind, and I really do feel that way. There are a lot of newer games that are really, really good. I mean, the mechanics and the visuals are really, really better, I think. But I love it when designers just make a game and they stick to a specific mechanic and they do that mechanic really well. I just find those are the type of games that come out to the table more. Those are the type of games that I walk away from and I have more fun. And this title does that. They picked the race mechanic and they focused on the race mechanic. They didn't throw all these other mechanics and all these other things into it. And then you sort of lose the concept that it's even a racing game. So, really well done, Wizkids. This is a great one. I definitely recommend this team. Grease Lightning You see it out there. You might want to pick this up if you're into the racers. So hit that like, click the subscribe below to join the team. Keep rolling them crits. This has been the McGuire Review. See you next time.